Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to go through the 34 or 35 books that are on my May TBR. The last 2 months that I've made a TBR for the entire month, I've had like mid-40s books on the TBR, which is absolutely unrealistic for me. The most I've ever read, I think I actually read 46 books in a month, but normally I read somewhere around the 30 book mark. So this month having 34, 35 books I feel like is pretty realistic for me. I probably won't finish just the last few of them, but this is at least a little bit smaller than normal. I've been trying to make progress on making my TBRs a little bit more realistic for myself. I did sort these into categories, so we're going to start out with thrillers. The first one is If Something Happened to Me, and this is a thriller about this guy who basically was in a car crash with his girlfriend. He watched his girlfriend get like taken from the car and kidnapped, and he wasn't able to do anything about it, and this has haunted him ever since. I'm really excited. I feel like this premise sounds really intriguing. The next one is the main character, and I don't know anything about this one. I'm going in blind because I read her last book called The Chateau, and it's fantastic. It's a little bit more on like the slower side of a mystery book. It's not super thriller-y, but the suspense was there and the atmospheric elements were really there too, so I'm excited for this one. The premise, the cover looks really good. I feel like this will be a really good book. Then we have another one that I'm going into blind, but I have such high hopes for because this is one of my favorite thriller authors. This is The Chamber by Will Dean. He wrote the last one. He wrote The Last Thing to Burn as well as Firstborn, and those three books, I loved all of them. I think the lowest I rated one of those was like 4.25 stars. So I feel like this is going to be amazing. This book comes out in August, and I just have high hopes. It's a locked door type thriller. I know it takes place in like a hyperbaric chamber, so can't wait for this one. We also have this book called Keep You. This is a YA mystery. It's a coming of age. It has elements of like romance and suspense, and I'm about halfway through this already, coming from last month, and this is really good so far. So I'm excited to finish this one up. I feel like it's going to be amazing. I read Christopher's last book, and that was a 5-star read for me, so I knew this was going to be good, and so far it's definitely living up to my hopes and expectations. Next up, we have Suicide Men by Freida McFadden. I run a Discord book club, and this was the book that was voted on for the month of May, so I will be reading this one, and this one's really thick. For Freida's books that are normally like maybe 300 pages, normally even a little less, this one's like mid 400. Oh no, this one's over 500 pages. I'm scared of that because her books are normally like just super fun and fast paced, so I'm worried if this one's slow that it might not be as good, but we'll see. I hope I'm wrong about that because I find her books to be just like absolutely so fantastic and fun, but I again think part of that might just be because they're short and they're bingeable, so I am very intimidated by this, but we'll see. Next up is Truth About Melody Brown, Lisa Jewell. I've enjoyed every one of her books I've read. The lowest I've rated one of her books I think was like a 3.5. They're not always like the most amazing twists at the end, which are my normal complaint, is I don't always love the twists because sometimes they're pretty straightforward, but the actual like entire book is so much fun to read, so I have high hopes for this one. I know nothing about this going in. I also know nothing about Ruth Ware's new book, By Choice. The One Perfect Couple is one of my most anticipated reads of the entire year. This is my favorite thriller author of all time. This is actually the author that got me into reading, was her book called The Woman in Cabin 10, and I've loved every single one of her books. I've read them all. So this is her new book that comes out in like the later half of May, and I'm just so excited for this one. I feel like it's going to be so amazing. Next up, we have The Wrong Family by Taryn Fisher. I was sent a few different books from, I think this is HarperCollins, but this was one of them, and I don't know anything going in. We also have two from Mary Kubica. One is Local and the Missing and Just the Nicest Couple. So these three I was sent from them, and so I'm planning to read all of these this month, as well as Mary Kubica's newest book, She's Not Sorry. This one came out in April, and I haven't read it yet, and I'm really excited to get to it because I've heard nothing but good things so far, so high hopes for that. This is kind of the opposite end. I've heard like a lot of negatives about this book, although I've also heard some people give it 5 stars. So I feel like the reviews on this one are like complete roller coaster, and so I'm excited to see where I land on this because it's a very polarizing book, I feel. But the cover looks really good, and the mini blurb says, "Welcome to paradise. We hope your survivors stay. There are 3 rules to follow during a vacation at this resort, and it is leave the past behind, always be careful who you trust, and if someone discovers who you really are, run." So it sounds intriguing to me. And then the last thriller or mystery book we have is A Better World, and this one looks so good because it's about this like very rich family. It says that this neighborhood is for the 0.0001%, and basically it's an idyllic like perfect neighborhood that people are invited to like buy into, and then things are going to start going wrong in this neighborhood, which sounds absolutely fantastic. Similar vibes about like rich people behaving badly. I don't know if that's what happens in that thriller, but this book is about that. This is called Very Bad Company, and I don't know what to classify this as. Maybe like, I don't know, contemporary fiction. I'm not sure what genre this goes into, but Very Bad Company is that. It's about a bunch of rich people who like are making bad decisions, and it's really fun to read about. There's usually lots of drama in these. This is the author of Bad Summer People, so I have high hopes. This one comes out, I think, mid-May. I missed one of my mysteries. This one's called We Used to Live Here, and I know nothing about this one. I'm going in blind, but this one comes out mid-June. So I'm excited about this one. A publisher sent this to me, somebody who watches my videos, and so I'm really excited to read this one. Then we have a whole bunch of romance. Let me do the other books first because there's a lot of romance. So we'll end with the romance because I don't know why I'm in such a romance mood, but I've been reading a ton of romance. So let's do our 2 fantasy books first. The first one is The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer. This is the author of The Wishing Game, which was one of my favorite reads of 2023. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was so fantastic. It's so whimsical. This one is supposed to be inspired by Narnia, and like the Chronicles of Narnia was one of my favorites as a kid. I watched that movie so many times, the first movie specifically. So I can't wait to read this one. It's supposed to be like loosely inspired by it. It's not like a retelling or anything like that. But I think it's about these like 2 men who go into like the woods, or no, I think they're boys at the time. They go into the woods, they are lost and never found. 2 years later, they show up and they have like no, they can't remember and they won't tell like what happened to them, and then they won't, like, they aren't friends anymore, they haven't spoken to each other, but somebody else goes missing in the forest and that person's sibling goes to them to try to get them to help, and so they finally reunite and they're gonna go back into this forest and we're gonna figure out like what happened to them all those years ago, which I feel like sounds so good. And then the other fantasy I'm planning to read is The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. I don't have a dust jacket on this one, but I'm really excited for this. This is the last book in Era 2 of Mistborn, so I've been putting this off mainly because I don't want Mistborn to be done. Like, I'm very sad to be out of this world for a while, so I don't know. We'll see if I actually read this. I haven't been in the biggest fantasy mood in May so far. I read quite a few in April, but I don't know. We'll see. This is like a to be determined. I'll read this at some point. I really am looking forward to it. All right, last 2 books that aren't romance. We have this book called The House is on Fire, and this is historical fiction about this theater that went up in flames in Virginia in 1811, and basically it follows these, like, I think 4 individuals whose lives were completely upended from this, and so it sounds really impactful and very good. Then we have this book called Piglet, and this one, I think this is like a contemporary fiction or a literary fiction. The premise sounds very intriguing. It follows this woman who basically her like childhood nickname Piglet like stuck with her throughout her life, and she is supposed to be getting married, but she finds out her like fiance cheated on her, so she's trying to decide between like going back with her fiance and just following through with what everyone wants for her, or like trying to actually like become the person she wants to be herself. And then the last one that's kind of not falling into any of the other genres I have, this is Homebody, and this is a memoir, but it's a graphic novel memoir, which I'm really excited for because I absolutely love graphic novels. So like the combo of a memoir and a graphic novel is fantastic. I've read one like this before and loved it, so I'm very excited for this. All right, now time for romance, which there are a lot of. The first one is called The Trail of Lost Hearts. I don't know a ton about this other than that it's about these 2 people who are like very broken. They go on a hike and it's a very dangerous hike, but they didn't know it was going to be dangerous, and they end up finding each other and being able to help each other through the hike, and they're going to fall in love. And this is blurred by Colleen Hoover, which I feel like is a good sign to have that big of an author blurbing your book, so I'm excited for that one, although I don't fully know what I'm getting myself into. Then we have Mia Sheridan's new book, Falling for Gage. This is in the same small town as Archer's Voice, and I loved Archer's Voice, so I feel like this is going to be absolutely amazing. We also have this debut romance book called One Last Shot, and this one is like a photographer and I think a model, and this is set in, I think, Italy, potentially? Yeah, it's set in Italy, and I feel like this is going to be really cute. This is going to be a second chance romance, so I'm excited for this. Next up, we have the 3rd book in the Avalon Bay series by Al Kennedy. So this is the last book. It's called The Summer Girl, and I really liked the first 2 books. They aren't my favorite of her books, but overall they've been really fun, so I'm excited to finish off the series with this one. Next up is another continuation of a series. This one's by Tessa Bailey. This one's Hook, Line, and Sinker, and this is the 2nd book for It Happened One Summer. And I liked It Happened One Summer. It wasn't my favorite ever. I think I gave it like 4 stars. So I've heard this one potentially is like not as good. So I put it off for quite a while, but it's getting to be summertime again, so I feel like I just need to read it, give it a try. Next up is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I love this edition so much. This is the Waterstones exclusive, and I feel like this is just the most gorgeous, and I'm really excited because I love all of her books, so I know this is going to be absolutely amazing. Then we have Keeping 13 by Chloe Walsh. I'm intimidated. This one's even longer than the first one. It's 600 pages, and all the pages are super, super tiny font, but we're going to read it. I'm excited for it because I did really like the first one, despite it being like a little too long in my opinion. Next up is Tourist Season by Brenda Novak. This one looks like a really cute, like, summery romance book. I've never read a book by this author, but it gives summer romance vibes, so I feel like it's perfect for this month. Then we have 3 books by the same author. We have Next to You, we have Next of Kin, and we have Out on a Limb, all by Hannah Bonham Young, and I'm pumped for these. I've heard nothing but good things about her as an author, and I'm new to her, so I'm planning to read all 3 of these. I think she only has one other book out, which is a Christmas novella, and I'm saving that for Christmas time, so after these 3 in the novella, I'll be done all of her books, which is exciting. And then the last 3 we have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, which is an author that I absolutely love. She actually wrote one of my tied for favorite romance books of all time, which was Yours Truly, and I've heard some people say this is even better than that, which I'm skeptical of because Yours Truly is, again, tied for my favorite, so I feel like it can't be beat. But this does have an absolutely adorable cover, and I am excited for it. I feel like this is probably going to be a 5-star read for me just based off of her past books, but we'll see about that. And the last two are authors that I met at the Sweetgrass author event that I went to. So I've met both of these, and they're so sweet, so I'm excited to read their books. We have Megan Quinn and Not So Me Cute. Megan Quinn is one of only a couple people who have ever seen my wedding dress, which is really random, but she asked to see it when we were talking with her, and I was like, sure, why not? So I showed her a picture, and she was just the sweetest human. So I'm really excited to read this. I've heard really good things about this. And then lastly, we have The Right Move by Liz Tomford. This is the second book in the Mile High series, and I gave 5 stars to the first book, and she was another author that was just such a sweetheart. I loved her so much, so I can't wait for this one. I keep putting this one off because it's like a little bit on the longer side. I think this is like mid 400 pages, but I don't know. I feel like I just need to read it because I love the first book so much, and I think I have an audio copy that I can get from Libby too, so I can do a tandem read, so I'm excited for this. That wraps it up. That's all the books that I have for my May TBR. I feel like it's somewhat doable, a lot more doable than my last couple months at least, and I'm excited for so many of these. So I'll of course update at the end of the month and show you guys what I got through, but I'd also love to hear if you have like one book that you're really excited to read this month. I'd love to hear it because I'm already starting to put together my June TBR.